Okay, this is picking up from the last video where we got our menu button created, and now we just need to implement JavaScript in order to be able to use that button. So we're going to be using a JavaScript library called jQuery. And in order to use it, you need to go to jQuery.com, okay, and you need to click on where it says download jQuery. You need to go ahead and click on that, and it takes you to this page. It tells you about the different versions of jQuery that you can get. Now, what this is it's a library that's already got a bunch of functions and stuff written so that you can basically use some of the scripts that work based off of those functions. But we need to load the library, sort of like you need to load the Google font thing, the text up in the head of the document before you can actually call it out in the CSS. It's similar. You have to load the library before you can use this jQuery JavaScript stuff. So down here where it says download the compressed production version, I just want to show you, if you click this, it'll take you to the page, and that looks terrifying and scary. Don't worry about it. If you go back, here's the uncompressed version, and it actually looks, I mean, you might not understand it, but actually looks more understandable, right? So the reason that they have these two versions is for development purposes. Sometimes people need to be able to read it so they can see the way that the functions are written. But for our purposes, we want the production version that has like no line breaks or anything. It's impossible to understand. And the reason we want that is because it loads a lot faster without all those extra white spaces and tabs and lines and stuff. Okay, so what you can do is right click this, and you're going to say save link as. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to our folder that we're currently working in. Ours is exercise 4. Mine was on the desktop. And I don't currently have a folder for JavaScript. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder that's called JS. And I'm making it in the root level, okay, of my exercise 4 folder, okay. And I'm just going to, before I save this, I'm going to just copy this file name, because I'm going to use it in a little bit, okay, and I'm going to hit save. So now that library is saved there. Now I can actually call it out. Let's just close this. Now I can actually call it out in my HTML. Okay, so what you're going to do is you are going to go up into the head of your document, and after the last CSS link, you're going to come up in here and you are going to type a tag that's called script. And then before you end it, you're going to say type equals, and then in quotation marks, you'll put text JavaScript. Okay, it should just pop right up for you. And then you need to have a source. So it's src, just like for an image file. And then you have to put the path to that file that we just saved. Well, if you want to double check, you can toggle left. And now you see that you've got this JS folder. So here we are in our index file. We just need to call out JS/ and then the name of that file. So I'm going to call out JS/, and this is why I copied the name before. I'm going to paste it. That way I didn't have to remember this silly name. And then I can end my script tag, and then it puts an ending script tag there for me. I don't need to put anything in between it. All it's doing is it's loading the library. Now, I'm going to toggle this closed. Now, the next thing I need to do is I need to have another script that's going to utilize that library. This part I don't expect you to actually type. We're not learning how to write JavaScript, so you can just paste it in. You'll be able to access this on the actual assignment page, this set of script. So if you go ahead and copy it, you'll come underneath where you attached your JavaScript library or your jQuery library, and you'll paste this script in, okay? And I'm going to explain to you what this does. You don't have to type it because I don't really want you to have to deal with typos, but I want to show you what this actually does. So first, to call the custom script, you have to do the same thing as you did up here, except you're not calling a source file. We're just actually going to call the script out in the head of this document, and then that way it'll just run in the document. Okay, so the first thing you do is you call it what's referred to as a document ready function. That's really common in jQuery. It's basically saying, hey, when the document is done loading, it's ready. It's ready to go. Then do the things that are inside. Okay, so these are all the things inside. The first function that it lists is basically what this is saying is that when the menu ID is clicked, okay, so on click of the menu ID, then do the following things, okay? And the first thing that it's going to do is it's going to find this in the HTML, basically, well, it's going to find this in the CSS, but it's going to actually discover where it's located in the HTML. So it's the unordered list that's in the top nav, which would be right here. Okay, so it's going to find that. And what it's going to do is it's going to add a class that's called mobile nav. Well, we haven't created that yet, but we're going to create it. It's going to add a class, and so what that's going to do, this class, is it's going to change the orientation and the layout of the way that this list looks, okay? And that's how we're going to get that overlay where it goes up on top of everything and is a little bit transparent. It's going to add this class of mobile nav to that unordered list, and it's going to change its styling. Okay, and then this next function right here is one where whenever we click on this thing called hide nav, there's going to be an ID called hide nav. When we click on that, it's basically going to remove our mobile nav class from that unordered list so that it stops being an overlay. Don't worry if you don't completely understand it yet, because we haven't actually put the code in the page, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview before we actually started on it. Okay, so now we need to create this mobile nav class, okay? And what that's going to do is it's going to take our normal list, as it says here, it's going to add this class to our normal unordered list for the navigation, and it's going to do something interesting to it. All right, so let's come down in our media query here, and in the media query, what we're going to do is we're going to make a new class that's called mobile nav, and in this class, we're going to basically make the position so that it's fixed. It's going to be pulled out of the document flow so that now it can be on top of everything else basically, and it won't scroll with the page. That's what fixed does. And so we're going to tell it to have a top orientation of 0, so top 0, and left 0, so it's going to be stuck right up in the top corner of the viewport. And we're going to have to give it a thing called a z-index. And this is something that you use with absolute and fixed positioning so that it's basically like a stacking order. So sort of like in a Photoshop layer, it knows that the thing with the highest number goes on top of everything else. So let's just give it a number like, I don't know, 600. It can go anywhere up to 999. So I'm just picking 600. All right, so and then the other thing I want to do is I want to tell it to be a width of 100%. And the reason I'm doing that is that the original width of that unordered list, I think, was 90%. So we're going to tell this to have a width of 100%. Okay, so that's a good starting place. And then lastly, if we wanted, we can give it a background color. So we're going to say background. And instead of just a solid color, I want you to sort of be able to see through it a little bit. So we'll make that an RGBA. And 0, 0, 0. And then for the opacity, we'll do 0. I don't know, let's try 9. We'll save that. And, you know, before we test this, I just realized that I misspelled mobile nav. That's really important. So if you do things like I do sometimes, misspell things, that could be, you know, the kind of thing that'll make you pull your hair out. So mobile has an E in it. So mobile nav, and that's really important because over here in our HTML, it has an E in it. And I guarantee that if you misspell it, it's not going to work because it's looking for something that's spelled exactly like this. So let's go ahead and save this and let's give it a try. Let's do our Chrome test. And all right, so we have a clickable button and boom, there it is. All right, it doesn't look the way we want it to just yet, but that's okay. The button's working, okay? That's what's important right this moment. what we need to do to get these to stop looking like the original list is that we need to basically take the float off the list items, and we need to change some other stuff so that it looks nice. All right, so if I hit refresh, it goes away. Okay, so let's take care of that. Let's come down here. Okay, so actually let's look up here really quickly and let's see where we have the nav stuff from up top. This will help us understand some of the things that might need to change. Well, first of all, this UL is no longer floating right, and it's also no longer 90%. So that's something that we're going to have to change. Also, these aren't floating right. They're not going to be 20% anymore. The height, that's not a big deal. We probably don't want text align center anymore. So there are a lot of things about this that are actually going to change. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, well, let's take a look at this too. Where we have list item A, you know what, there's a lot of this stuff that is going to change. So I'm just going to take all of this and I'm going to copy it. And we're going to come down to the bottom. And underneath mobile nav, I'm going to paste it. The only thing is that I need to do, here, let's tab that in, is that I need to make sure that I add this class inside of these rules, because now that class will be added. Let me show you something before we do that to help you understand what I'm talking about. So here, if I, let's take a look here. Okay, so if I right click this and I inspect the element, okay, right here is the UL, and it just is plain old UL. Okay, now if we make it smaller, the UL is still there, but watch what happens when I click this menu. It adds the class called mobile nav. That's what the JavaScript is doing, which is really, really nice, okay? So, but that also means that now that's what we have to use when we target it specifically. All right, so I'm gonna refresh that page and let's come back over here. And like I said, I'm gonna copy this mobile nav class, and it is going to be right there on the end of that UL because it's actually assigned to the UL, and I'm going to put that in all of these classes so that it is abundantly clear to the browser what I intend, okay? And then we can just go and change all those properties that we didn't like. All right, so for instance, float right would be float none, width would be now 100%. That's just for the UL. This is for the LIs, again, float none. And we've got a width of 100% this time because we want it to go all the way across. Height, let's just leave that alone, that's fine. Maybe we'll need to change it. Text align, we'll probably want that to be left now. Font size, we could leave that alone. Probably this line height is all wrong. I'm just going to delete that completely. And I'm guessing that the font size, actually, let's just stick with 1 and see what happens. 1M. And then for the mobile nav A, list item A, for the anchor tags, the color, let's just, I guess we can leave it like that for right now. And then text decoration, none. Display block, here, we actually don't need this because it's still gonna remember it. Display block, we probably want to go ahead and keep that, that's fine. Height 100%, width 100%, fine. Let's just leave these alone. Save that, and then now let's see if that helps us out. Okay, so let's refresh this page again. Okay, so now, and we can close this as well. When we click the button, now we actually are getting our drop-down menu. Okay, problem is that we can't close it. So that's going to be our next trick, is to add something here at the end of the list that doesn't normally show up in the normal view, but it shows up here so that we can close this. So you can just watch the next video and it'll just continue right along.